Hey, what's going on, guys? How y'all doing today? I had a viewer ask me if I could do a grip build on the 35R, the R35 GTR. So I figured I'd go ahead, put a little grinding in, and go for it. This is literally a $1 million build for C5, but this thing smokes the competition. Like, look at that mini-map down there. They're not even remotely keeping up with me. I thought my Evo was pretty good, the Evo 9. But this thing kind of makes it look like crap. Now the Evo does have a little bit more top speed power, but this thing has, like, I wouldn't say more top speed power, but like up towards the top end, from like say 280 to like 315, it feels like it has more acceleration in that area. But this thing, like, from 0 up to like that 250, 290 mark is fast. For a C5 class, no weight reduction. I'll show you guys the tune in a minute. But I thought that my Evo was good. This thing actually handles very good. I will go into the tuning for the suspension in depth on this one. I actually had to stiffen the springs up quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and just, in my recording software, fast forward to the future here and go to the end of the race. And I will see you guys at the win and in the tuning shop. There we are at the end. Now that Corvette is probably the hardest one you come across in the C5 class. That thing is insanely fast. I don't know what it is with the AI, but that thing just seems to rubber band horribly. Let's go ahead and hop into the tuning shop and I'll show you guys what all I did. Oh, and before I get into the tuning, I wanted to show you guys the body kit that I was running. Unfortunately, this wing that I put on it, you cannot paint. So if you guys want this wing and you're planning on putting it on your car and you want to paint it and you don't like that gray, don't buy it, because then you'll just waste $5 grand. It's not like it's that expensive, but I think it was like $5,800 or something like that. But the last body kit you can get, I got that because of the fact that every single one is just skinnier. And if you want the best handling within the game, you want to run with the widest body kit. Now the gray really doesn't bother me. I'm probably gonna send a screenshot or a clip to CarX developers and say, hey, we can't paint this. Can you guys fix this in the future with an update? They seem to be getting back to the community, so I might actually go ahead and do that and shoot them an email. And maybe even send it to their Twitter or whatever I can do to try to get it across to them. But I'm gonna go ahead and hop into the tuning, and I will be right back. As for the engine, racing ECU, racing turbo, racing camshafts, racing intake, racing fuel system, racing cylinder head, and I ended up burning some street coin on the engine block. Just because at this point in time I was running from $1 million down to like 300,000 after buying the car, and I wanted to save a little bit of money there plus get a little bit more performance. Racing exhaust, manifold, and racing exhaust. And then as for the engine tunings, rev limiter up to the max, turbine pressure right there at 1.1, peak RPM 8420, torque at high 402, and then you're able to max out the torque at low. So when you're like taking off on the line, and then like when you're at like medium to lower RPM, whenever you're like say going through corners and stuff, and you'll be at like 5,000 RPM and stuff like that, you get a little bit more torque. And then when you get up into the RPM range, you're more coming into horsepower. And now for the tunings on the transmission. Final drive ratio, I went with 3.52. Did not touch anything first through 5th gear. And then I dropped 6th gear down just a notch, because otherwise the car was wanting to go up at like 330, and it just doesn't have the power for that unless you're hitting nitrous, and you're never really going to use that in C5 class anyways. And then the lock and the acceleration for your diff lock, I usually run center, so that way you can get a little bit better launch right off of the line. And then as for the man, I cannot even talk today. As for the downforce, the front end is all the way up, air resistance all the way down, so that way you could see here, it'll drop your top speed. Then you put it all the way down, so that way you have better air resistance, better airflow over the vehicle, and you can get some more top speed out of it. And then the downforce, I put 1 notch down. I did test this all the way up, and when I was running the downforce all the way up in the rear end would not like come around when I was coming through corners and stuff like that, and it was causing it to feel very stiff. And then also the suspension. I stiffened these springs up quite a bit. I did try to run lower ride height on it, but I ended up having to raise back up to default on the front. I stiffened 2 notches on the spring stiffness, stiffened the stabilizer, brought the camber to -3, caster angle is default, Ackerman angle I dropped a notch, because that'll help you get a little bit more traction from spinning out, so when your car goes sideways, it'll put you like right on that angle to where it'll stop you from spinning out. Like if you're having trouble with drift builds spinning out, run that Ackerman all the way down. Steering angle up to the max, so that way when you're going through tight areas like the toge areas and stuff, you can have a lot more steering angle. Wheel toe, for race builds, I like to run either default toe or up just a notch. I kind of played with this back and forth for about 20 minutes just driving through the city, seeing how it felt. It felt good going up 1 notch on the toe, so I put that there. All of the shocks I leave, braking force I put to the max. Your brake balance, you want to have about 55% in the front, because most of your stopping power, so default is good, most of your stopping power is your front tires, even in real life. Like literally 70% of your stopping power on your real life vehicles, you're rarely ever actually using your rear brakes unless you're really getting down on the brakes hard. Spring length, like I said, I did drop this down quite a bit to test it, but I had to bring it back up. And then the stiffness I had to bring back up, because when I was going down the highway, the bumps on the highway were causing the car to bottom out, and every time it would dip and bottom out, I would lose like 2 miles an hour. So I actually ended up having to bring the stiffness up on this car quite a bit. Stabilizer, I brought the stiffness up a notch. Camber, I like to run my camber kind of flat on the rear. I don't know what it is, it just feels good to me. I've always done that, even in like Gran Turismo, back in the day on the first Gran Turismo 2, Gran Turismo 3, all the Forzas, I always run like a flat camber in the rear. That's just what feels good to me. Maybe you might like to hear a little camber. It might actually perform better. This is just usually what I go with. Rear toe stock, and the shocks they feel good default in this game, so I don't mess with nothing. Now for the tires. The wheel offset. Oh, I probably should get into the wheel size. Front spacers are ultimate, rear spacers ultimate. 345 25/20s. Same for the rear. Then I went down 1 size for these, because if you go up, then they're just raising the ride height of the car, and you don't want that. You want to kind of keep that default tire size on here, so that way you can keep your ride height as low as possible without dragging the ground. And then the pressures I didn't mess with, it felt good. You could probably bring these front spacers in just a notch to bring the look of the car better, but that's just where I was running it, and it felt good driving it. I didn't have no issues. So, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and put it back there, because as soon as I'm done with this video, this car is getting turned into a drift build, and I'm never going to use it again in a race. But I'm actually glad that you asked me to make a grip build out of this, because this car actually turned into a very good grip build. A lot better than I thought. The acceleration is very good. Like, my acceleration on my fully built R34 is 2.9. As you can see here, 3.1. for a C5 class, that is very good. And you could see right there on the line, the Corvette's the fastest one you come across in the C5 class. You could see right off of the line, I pull right away from him. And I would definitely keep that all-wheel drive in there too. But I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you did, hit that subscribe button. Come back for future builds. I hope you all have a good one, and I will catch you in the next one.